Hello, everyone. My guest today is Chris Byers. He's the CEO of a company called Formstack, a versatile online form solution that streamlines processes for capturing and managing information. His mission is to empower business professionals through simple and elegant tools that remove complexity from everyday business processes. Formstack is committed to pursuing that via sustainable growth. He works with a leadership team to advance the community's initiatives, including its culture, code, and vision, which focus on relationships, results, and the community. Chris, are you ready to take us to the top?
Absolutely.
So I've always wondered, a tool like you, right? When Google releases Google Forms, tools like you still grow and people still use them and people still, don't churn and expansion revenue is there. How have you, kick us off and kind of tell us what you do and then tell us specifically how you've competed with kind of the Google Forms threat.
Yeah, so I think if you go back to the early days, back in 2006, it was needed a developer to build a web form and get it on your website. And so if you weren't a developer and you wanted to collect a lead, we kind of made it easy to get that done. Roll forward a few years, that's kind of baked into every software that you've got, CRM, email, et cetera. And so it kind of transitioned to collect data and then get it into what is now one of 50 kind of native integrations. Because really, you want to get it into those backend systems that are really important to you to send an email or start your kind of relationship with a customer, process a payment, something like that. And as we've kind of gone forward, we've really started to think about and built out this kind of collaborative moment around data collection. So we're all living in these much more collaborative environments. And so you can imagine a time where you need multiple people to kind of input along a form, kind of to get the right data. And so imagine something as simple as a reimbursement form. You go travel somewhere, you need to fill that out. Your manager needs to actually see that data. They get it in an email or something, pull up the form, they see what you filled out, and then they say, oh yeah, I need to add to that. I need to code it to this project, and then it passes on to the AP department who says, okay, I paid it on this date. It notifies you. Realistically, that's just one big form, but you need to kind of assign parts to different people. And so if you think about what Google has done, they've served the audience really well of just basic data collection, get it into a Google Sheet at the end of the day. And they do that cleanly. It's easy to use. It's free, but it sticks with that use case. It's just, I need an internal use case often where you don't care about brand as much. You don't care about styling it as much. And so we definitely have, I'm sure we lose business to them, but we don't hear it much. Because people are really starting to automate a process when they're thinking about Formstack versus just quick data collection and quick form collection.
So 2006, you said was year one, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
And then walk me through, I want to hear kind of where your head was at in 2006. But first, like when a customer signs up for Formstack, on average, what are they paying per month, would you say?
On average, 60, 70, 80 bucks a month.
Okay, and is that per seat or that's kind of the logo, the brand is paying 60, 70 or 80?
Yeah, the brand is paying, and often you'll start to add users, and so that's what's going to drive your price up. You can start as low as 19 bucks a month, but often people will start with about 5 users because they want to have multiple people be able to get in and see the data, or maybe again use approvals or workflow or something like that.
Got it. So 3, 4, 5 users. That's where you get your 60, 70, 80 buck ARPU on average. Yep. Okay, interesting. So take me back to 2006. Where was your head at that point? Did you just quit your corporate job because you were frustrated, back against the wall, no money, had to make this work? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so I'm in an interesting scenario where an old business partner of mine and I, we had a software company, nearly 20 years ago now, and he actually started Formstack and then started a second business in 2009. And I had helped him kind of raise money and was an early product user. And so I said, hey, in 2009, I said, I'll come in and run the business for 6 months and find somebody to run it long term. And then I never left. So, in the early days, it was all about how do we just empower other people? I mean, here's the thing. You're an entrepreneur. You know how to solve most of the problems that you're trying to solve. You just don't always have the technical capability to get it done. And so where we can give you software to get that done, because you don't really need to go pay a custom, for custom development or something like that, where we can kind of give you those assets in your hands. All of a sudden, you've got a power that you didn't have beforehand, and can kind of get the job done. So it from day one was about making people's lives easier in some way.
I understand the product. I want to dive more kind of into the growth and how you've gotten to where you've gotten. So just to be clear, though, in terms of looking at the company, if I looked at the cap table, would it be very clear you're a co-founder, or were you added for 1 or 2% equity as a CEO in charge in 2009?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of both had been an early investor and then kind of have grown equity over time. And so our founder was, really controlling investor for a long time, but from day one, he gave me complete autonomy to go build the business that I felt like I needed to build, which was amazing. And so, that's kind of roughly how that.
That's great. And what have you scaled to today in terms of total customers using you?
So we're about 16,000 customers.
Oh, that's great. And those aren't like free and pay; those are the actual paying customers.
Yep, that's exactly right. So we get probably 4,000 people coming to try the product every month, and then some few hundred of those sign up. But I've grown to kind of 16,000, and there were about 100,000 kind of active users sitting on top of those paid accounts.
Got it. So 16,000 logos, 100,000 kind of people inside of each of those logos together.
Yep, that's right.
And can I multiply that times the $70 ARPU, and you guys are north of $1 million a month at this point? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Okay. And what does this kind of space look like in terms of how have you guys been growing year over year? So if you're at north of $1 million today, 12 months ago, were you at 500? Where were you?
Yeah, we've kind of been in the 30 to 40% growth range probably for the past few years. And as you grow a business, one of the things that gets obviously more challenging is, realistically, the core initial market forms, let's say, it's not going to grow to $100 million business.
Sure.
And so we had to add elements like workflow and beginning to automate process so that we can start to think about, it makes sense for me to add 10 users or 1,000 users or 10,000 users because I need them to be a part of this process. Whereas in the beginning, I said, my one marketing person needs to have access to Formstack to collect leads. And so, and then we also have done an acquisition. We did an acquisition late last year with a product called Fast Forms, where they were really deeply embedded into the Salesforce App Exchange, and we're doing a really amazing job of collecting data in that kind of ecosystem. But you start to see where you have to add other elements to the business to kind of keep growth rate going.
Yep. No, it's a really smart product decision, obviously, to drive expansion revenue. Give us a sense of that. How it sounds like if your price point starts at $19 and your average is $70, you've done a great job growing seats and adding additional features, et cetera. But can you quantify that for us? Like maybe in terms of, net revenue retention annually?
Yeah. So, I guess the best way I'd say it is if you rolled back 3-4 years, we were probably 3% gross churn on a monthly basis, but then even net churn was not much better. That maybe
you're talking logos or revenue?
Revenue churn, they probably look
the
similar.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things as we've really gotten better at going up market and expanding with customers, we've driven that kind of, we're not at a regular negative kind of churn rate, but we are pretty flat. And so that means when we do go at least acquire customers and bring them on, we're being much more efficient about keeping them around long term. But that's a hard problem to solve.
Well, especially your price point too. SMBs are notorious for churn. But let me just re-articulate what I think I just heard you say, which is your expansion revenue annually about equals revenue you lose. So you're about flat, which is actually, it sounds weird saying flat because usually you don't want to hear flat. That means bad. But in this case, flat is actually good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly.
That's great. And so give me more. 16,000 customers, obviously a lot of customers. Walk me through when you joined in 2009. How many customers existed when you joined, and how did you drive the next 1,000 after you joined?
Yeah, we were probably in the few thousand range at that time. And, I'd say I'd look at 3 probably different phases. The first phase was just, we got to get inbound presence. We built a great brand and people would come try the product or use it free. And you had some natural virality there. And that grew us those first, say, 5,000, maybe even 6, 7, 8,000 customers. And over time, we realized there's actually a group of people out there who they can get the job done, but they need a little bit of handholding. And so we actually it was the beginning of sales for us. We had not talked to a customer really ever until in a kind of a sales-oriented way until about 4 or 5 years ago. And so we started to interact with them and we saw, you've actually got a lot of larger brands who come in and use the product and they need a lot more hand-holding or they need a contract or something like that. And so we just began to think about what does it take to serve that customer. And so we built something that for us at the time was kind of ugly. We didn't want to deal with SSO, something very enterprisey. We didn't like the word enterprise. We still don't love it.
Sure.
But started to entertain those conversations. And that's where we really started to see ARPU grow and go from, say, $20 a month to $40, $50 a month. because we were getting some big deals.
So Chris, just to be clear, sorry. So you use kind of powered by Formstack, right? To get kind of natural viral coefficient stuff going to 6, 7, 8,000 users. You then said, let's hire some salespeople to go land. Well, you've already landed to expand in these accounts that are already using us. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that. And then we married together with that a product. We had never had a product manager, and we started to introduce product management into the organization.
I see.
So started to, forever it was me just saying, I like that. And I heard a customer say it, so let's go build that feature. And eventually it's like, oh, no, we need to go really understand customer problems and build toward those.
And what's team size today?
We are about 115.
And how many of those are salespeople or onboarding?
Yeah, sales is about 20, and that grew dramatically last year. So we had an inbound sales team who deal with the kind of 4,000 trailers a month for, like I said, 4 or 5 years. And last year, we really started to see some traction in upmarket, specifically healthcare. We got our product HIPAA compliant, which kind of became this gate that helped us really have very different conversations with customers. So we started to hire some more upmarket salespeople, and that's where we've grown a lot lately and are seeing some really good success.
And so now that you have an inside sales team, plus I assume you probably do some paid spend test. What is your fully weighted CAC, and what do you like to optimize your payback period for?
Yeah, CAC is probably, I'd call it $1,000 per kind of acquisition.
Yep.
We love to run in the under 12 months range. We've always run a fairly conservative organization in terms of spend. So we took some capital back in 2008 and 2009, and then did not take capital again after that. We just
how much have you raised so far total?
I mean, that was like $1 million or a little bit less than that back in 08, 09.
Okay, so, I mean, you can argue relative to your size. I mean, the fact that you've raised, there's a 1-to-1 ratio between your MRR and how much you've raised. It's pretty healthy. Most people don't have 1-to-1 ratio in terms of ARR to what they've raised. Great. Okay, good. So $1,000 CAC, $70 ARPU or $80 ARPU, again, payback there on, aiming for 12 months. And then this is a tricky question, and I'm always curious how CEOs use this number. So how do you use lifetime value? And secondly, what do you think it is right now at a minimum?
Yeah, it's a good question. For a long time, we tried the LTV to CAC ratio. And I guess we think about lifetime value as using current churn rate to calculate it. And so you're always stating, obviously, you're assuming a bunch of people are going to stay around. We actually went back to the 12-month payback because it is simpler for people to understand. It's actually a little bit more conservative because you can get pretty crazy in terms of keeping a, say, 3 LTV to CAC ratio. You could be spending a lot of money, and especially if we go close, let's say, $100,000 a year deal, all of a sudden you're kind of making these leaps about, I could spend $100,000 to acquire a customer, which those people come in from time to time, but it's not like we actually know how to turn that around and spend that kind of money to acquire one customer. So we've probably avoided actually using. We report on it every month. We don't actually use it to make many decisions these days. That's
usually what I hear. So what do you typically report? Like, are we talking like a $4,000, $3,000, $2,000 LTV typically?
Yeah, probably in the 4,000 range.
Yeah. It's always interesting. Like, people want that number because they want the LTV to CAC ratio, but you're exactly right. It just seems like for CEOs, payback period is so much more kind of instructional and useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just keeps you more grounded in terms of making smart decisions and using your own cash to run the business versus needing to always raise money.
That's right. Last few questions here. Team, where are you guys all based?
So we're actually a pretty remote team. We started in the office years ago, but we opened the door to remote in 2012. And at this point, on a Monday in Indianapolis, where our headquarters is, you might only see 3-4 people in the office. And even though we've got, say, 20 people in the city, but we're spread from as far west as California, as far east as Poland, Canada, down to Argentina. So we've got people all over. A
lot of very exciting companies in India. You got Demand Jump doing very well. Their growth rate was incredible in 2017. A lot of other folks there. There's something in the water, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. The exact target story helped push a lot of things forward in the city.
Were you part of his accelerator? Did you guys go through that?
We didn't. We did actually kind of raise capital from a local kind of angel fund that was going in those days, but nothing formal. It was just them, putting some capital in the business.
Yeah, but I assume since your last raise was 08, 09, you're now running kind of at break even or cash flow positive.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep. Any plans to raise capital in the next year?
No plans right now. I think we're in good shape right now, and looking to kind of just keep growing the business as is, and look for potential acquisitions where it makes sense and where we've got the cash to fund it.
I was going to say, alternatively, if Google came to you and offered you, call it 4x ARR, so somewhere now 40, 50, 60 million, do you sell the company? I mean, how do you make that decision?
Yeah, I think at this point, we're still trying to grow a really large enterprise. And I think we're trying to figure out how do we get to $100 million in revenue. And so, of course, we're always going to be entertaining, an offer or something like that. But realistically, we want to see if we can build something pretty big and long lasting.
Makes good sense. Chris, let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Good to Great is an easy win there.
Good. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
I have been reading a book called Outsiders. It's about Warren Buffett would be one of many stories, but about thinking about asset allocation and building a big business.
I just finished that book. It's basically the top 8 public CEOs in history in terms of stock returns. Capital Cities is in there. A lot of these great companies are in there.
Yep.
Teal, white, and black cover. Good one. Number 3, is there a favorite online tool you have for building your business?
We just for paying attention to the business, we use a tool called RJ Metrics for dashboards and things like that. But that's just making sure we know what's going on and how to make smart decisions.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Oh, I get a solid 8 hours.
That's good. And what's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Married with kind of teenagers. So
how many?
2 kids. Yeah.
2. Okay, that's good. And how old are you?
I am 40.
40. Okay, Chris, last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
20-year-old self, I think, take more opportunity to build your own vision for your life and not let someone else build it, not look to somebody else and say, oh, I want to be like them. There's something inside of you that, in my worldview that, God made us to be. And so there's a purpose in there. Go find out what that is and go drive toward it.
Guys, there you have him, Chris. Own your own vision. Joined Formstack back in 2009 after one of his friends who created it in 2006 started seeing some traction. He joined for a 6-month kind of part-time role to find a new CEO, ended up never leaving. The company now has 16,000 customers paying on average $70, $80 a month, so north of $1 million per month in revenue, 0% net revenue churn annually. So expansion equals obviously lost revenue, growing 30 to 40% year over year, only $1 million raised. So I love that. Obviously great ratio there. A team of 115 people based in many remote locations from, India all the way to the West Coast, all the way back into the Northeast as well. Super healthy economics as well. $1,000 CAC, 12-month payback period. Chris, we're rooting for you. Thank you for taking us to the top.
Thanks so much.